Hey guys, it's Luke, and today I'm coming in with another battle. This one is going to be full of chaos and insanity. It's a battle to determine who is the better user of Toon Force. So, on the left, we have Gear 5 Luffy from One Piece. And on the right, we have my custom character, my custom Toon Force character, Jessie the Jester. Now, which one will win this fight? Well, to determine that, I'm gonna briefly go over Luffy and some of his abilities and feats, which then I will transition over talking about Jessie. And then, in fact, I don't even think I really need to explain an actual battle here because of how insane it's gonna be. So basically, the outcome is which one of these two has the stronger Toon Force and which one has the better imagination. Starting off with Luffy. What do I know about Luffy? Well, just to let you know, One Piece is actually one of my favorites. One of my favorite animes. But Luffy is one of the dumbest characters ever. And yet he has one of the highest battle IQs. It's crazy. In my opinion, though, Luffy is definitely the weakest of the big three. Sorry, I have to say it. And just to let you know, no, I don't think Luffy actually has Toon Force. So, to explain that, let me explain what his powers are. So, as a kid, Luffy ate a devil fruit called the Gum Gum fruit that made his body have the properties of rubber, allowing him to basically stretch toward and basically shapeshift his body, which honestly is one of the most basic powers from fiction, honestly. But later on in the series, by the Wano arc, it's revealed, actually not Wano, sorry. Wano is when Gear 5 was introduced when Luffy fought Kaido. No. In Egghead Island, Dr. Vegapunk reveals that the Gum Gum fruit never existed, and that the devil fruit that Luffy ate was actually called the Hito Hito no Mi modeled Nika, which gave Luffy the powers of Sun God Nika, meaning that his rubber body was just a side effect. His true power was to basically turn his imagination into reality. But because Luffy is a total idiot and doesn't know the truth, he just keeps thinking that his power is stretchiness. Now, what should I have Luffy at his fullest potential in this fight, or where his power level is currently in manga? I don't know. So a few things to know is that Monkey D. Luffy, who's the grandson of Vice Admiral Garth and the son of the revolutionary leader, Dragon, right? He is good friends with legendary pirate Red-Haired Shanks, which honestly is pretty much my favorite character in the entire series. And he actually steals the fruit. Well, not steal the fruit per se. He basically opened up a little crate, like a little treasure chest, that held the fruit and ate it because he was hungry. It was dumb. So basically, like a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, I don't know how old he was, took the fruit and ate it, thinking it was a normal fruit, and he got stretchy powers, but he lost the ability to swim. So basically, throughout most of the series, Luffy has the ability to basically stretch his body out in insane ways, but loses his ability to swim. And because of his stretchy body, he's immune to lightning, he's immune to physical strikes, but he can still basically get killed by blades. But but by the time he unlocks gear, actually, before I explain Gear 5, let me explain his other gears. So, Gear 1 is his base form. Gear 2 is when he basically speeds up his blood pressure, and basically heating his blood up to increase his overall strength and speed. Gear 3 is when he bites his thumb and blows into it, giganticizing his fist for a giant strike. Gear 4... Actually, before I explain Gear 4, maybe I should explain his other abilities. So, in the One Piece universe, there are the Devil Fruits, which are magical cursed fruits that if you eat it, you get superpowers, but the downside is you're cursed by the ocean, so if you hit the water, you basically drown. But there's a secondary ability called Haki, which is the manifestation of one's willpower. The stronger one's will, the stronger the Haki. And there's 3 kinds of Haki. Armament Haki, which is the weakest out of the 3, which basically creates this invisible hardened cover on their body over their skin, which honestly always appears black in One Piece. That basically enhances overall AP or attack potency. Second one is Observation Haki, which is a pathetic lower powered version of Ultra Instinct, where it's like, which allows the person to basically dodge attacks really fast. But the difference between Observation Haki and Ultra Instinct is that Ultra Instinct, you don't have to think. Where Observation Haki, you still have to use your brain. And then there's the most powerful over all of them, which is Conqueror's Haki. With Conqueror's Haki, you basically release your will in raw waves, and like you can release Haki energy in waves, either invisible or visible, and the stronger the will, the more effect it has on people. Basically, if the person is pathetic in willpower, they get knocked out. Yeah. I honestly love the Haki power system, but there's just better power systems, honestly. So yeah, Luffy unlocks Gear 5 in his battle against Kaido, and how that happens is that Luffy basically dies. But after Luffy died, his Devil Fruit awakens, unlocking his Devil Fruit awakening that transformed him into Gear 5. And as Gear 5, he can do crazy things like turn his imagination into reality. He can basically create things out of nothing. He was able to grab a freaking lightning bolt and throw it down at Kaido. And Luffy's strongest feat, which is arguably, people argue which is planetary, which is not, is actually from island level to continental level. So what Luffy's strongest attack, I forgot what it's called, but basically it's when he basically fuses Armament Haki, Conqueror's Haki, and Gear 3 into one giant fist covered in Armament Haki infused with Conqueror's Haki, where he strikes down on the entire island. Yeah. Yeah, but Gear 5 has a major drawback, in my opinion. Actually, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. It has a drawback. The longer every time Luffy uses it, the more of his lifespan he uses up. So basically, he risks his own life using it. And if he doesn't defeat the villain in a certain amount of time, then the ability wears off and he ages rapidly. So, yeah. What else can I say about Gear 5 Luffy? I mean, sure, he's strong, but is he really powerful? I mean, AP-wise, he's multi-continental, and speed-wise, he's arguably faster than Light. But can Jessie the Jester match up? Let me explain who Jessie the Jester is. So, in my Electros origin story, Jessie the Jester reveals to be this little girl who loved watching cartoons growing up, like Looney Tunes, Popeye, whatever, like Tom and Jerry. Whatever children's cartoon was on, she would love it. And she loved the whole Toon Force effect of the show. Like being able to just break the laws of physics and reality. And so, Jessie the Jester, well, before she became a Jester, she was just a little girl. But basically what happens is that little Jessie was basically taken in by this vampire scientist, researcher, or whatever. I forgot who Vampira was, but basically she took Jessie in, kind of cared for her, but also experimented on her. And Vampira asks Jessie, okay, if you could have any power, what would it be? And Jessie says, well, I've always loved cartoons, so turn me into a cartoon character with true Toon Force. And she's like, okay. And that's what happened. So even though, Jessie the Jester, she has the mindset of a child who enjoys playing games. Biologically, when she's introduced, she looks like she's in her 20s. But chronologically, she's hundreds of years old. If not thousands. And that's, in her childish mindset, is what makes her so dangerous. She treats battles, wars as games. In fact, when Electros fought her, she thought that them fighting was a game, and that if he kills the opponent, then the game was over and she just moves on to the next fight. Like it's a video game or whatever. So, Jessie the Jester, I'm gonna go ahead and explain her abilities. Just like Luffy, she can stretch her body, she can turn imagination to reality, she can basically break the laws of physics, she shapeshifts, conjures objects out of nothing. But unlike Luffy, he uses true Toon Force. Meaning that not only can she bend reality, she can basically alter the outcome of the situation if she wanted to. The only downside is her childish personality. That is her number one weakness. Besides that, if it wasn't for that, she's basically an unstoppable Toon God. So, but despite her childish personality, she is very creative in battle. So the real question is, in this fight, in fact, before I go on any further, let me explain how terrifying she is. So, you all remember Badger, right? Badger the undead, the shadow beast of war. Yeah. So there's this one storyline where Badger basically appears in Toon World, which is its own like parallel dimension within the Prime universe, and where basically where that follows cartoon logic, and so believe it or not, cartoon logic or Toon Force or whatever basically bypasses most of Badger's hacks and abilities. So yeah, the first time that Badger went to Toon World, he nearly died. And the one that nearly killed him was Jessie the Jester. Okay, let's move on. So, with that said, does Luffy stand a chance? I think not, honestly. So another thing to let you know about Jessie the Jester is that that she is basically immortal. She can't die. You can kill her, but then she'll just pop right back up. It's like freaking Bugs Bunny. Like in Space Jam, he uses a special basketball shot that erases a digital character permanently. And we see him make that sacrificial. He chooses to sacrifice himself and make that shot, and then gets erased from existence. Next moment, back in the real world, Bugs Bunny reappears next to LeBron James, and his argument is, "I'm a Toon, Doc. I can survive anything." It's a stupid argument. Now, I did recently watch this one video where this guy argues that Toon Force Luffy, power-wise, would just totally annihilate Bugs Bunny. And I don't believe that, because I've watched so many videos that basically explains that Bugs Bunny is a literal Toon god that can basically not just alter reality within Looney Tunes universe. He has actually become the author of the Looney Tunes universe. Yes, Bugs Bunny has basically, there has been this time in the story, in a story, that Bugs Bunny literally jumps into the real world and becomes the author, controlling everything that happens within the Looney Tunes universe. He becomes the author. He becomes the animator. He draws and creates everything. But if you don't want to go with that insane scaling and just go by Bugs Bunny's more down to earth feats, then you're like, sure, makes sense, I guess. But anyway, back to the battle. I'm not gonna try to come up with some sort of battle scenario for these two, because let's just face it, this Toon Force battle is just gonna be extremely chaotic. All I can say is that, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and try coming up with a scenario. And I don't even know how these two would even meet. But the only thing I can think of is that suddenly, out of nowhere, Luffy just randomly appears in Toon World. He looks around and is like, "Where the heck am I?" And then Jessie the Jester would probably pop out of nowhere and says, "Yay! Yay, a new friend to play with." Now, before I move on, please tell me in the comments do you think that Jessie the Jester's childish mindset will basically be her undoing in this fight, and Luffy finds a way to bypass her Toon Force, or do you think that Jessie the Jester, despite her childish mindset, is unmatched? Let me know. Anyway, so he would probably pop in and be like, "Yay, a new friend!" And then Luffy is like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll be your friend. Do you have any meat around?" And then she's like, "I don't know." Then pulls out a piece of meat, one of those meat, bone meat things that you see in the anime. He's like, "Here you go." and then and Luffy would try going for it, but then she's like, "Nah, if you want this meat, you'll have to play with me." And Luffy's like, "What?" So Luffy reluctantly agrees to her game. And so he basically says, "Okay then, here's the rules. We each use the same attack, and we'll see which one has the stronger attack. We'll keep going until we determine who is the stronger toon. And to make this even more interesting, I'll even let you transform into your different forms, or as you like to call them, gears. But seriously, gears? What are you? A car? A clock?" and Luffy's like, "Oh." I don't even know why Luffy calls his transformation gears, but okay. So Luffy would probably throw a simple stretch punch, and Jessie counters with her own, but because Jessie is much stronger than Luffy's base, she ends up hurting Luffy's hand. And Luffy brings his arm back, shaking his hand. He's like, "Ow! What are you made of? Steel?" And then he looks at her arm and sees what stretched out wasn't necessarily stretchiness, but she turned her arm into a spring. For more. Now, I'm not saying, now, Jessie the Jester can technically stretch her body out in the traditional sense like Luffy can, but he likes turning her, shape-shifting her arm, her rubber arm, and transforming it into a spring, with her hand turning into a punching glove like you see in this image, for more comedic effect. Because let's face it, she's a cartoon character. Everything about her is supposed to say comedy. And she's like, "That was fun. Another one." So basically, this entire fight is basically them going back and forth using the same attacks against each other to see who outwins the other. And the thing is, Jessie the Jester doesn't necessarily have transformations. I mean, sure, she can turn herself, she can grow into a giant or shrink very small, but the fact is, throughout this entire fight, I would say that instead of trying to describe every attack, I would just say, okay, here's a quick montage. We see Jessie countering every attack from base Luffy. Then Luffy's like, "Okay, try this one." Turns into gear 2. He's like, and then he shoots multiple fast jet fists with armament hockey, and Jessie counters with her own Gum Gum Gallet. I think that's what it's called. And then he would go into gear 3, and she would also enlarge her arm, and they would strike. That's what I mean by why it's hard for me to come up with this battle scenario and describe this fight, because it's basically treated as a game, with Jessie basically saying, "Okay, we both use the same attack and see which one is stronger." And they kept going. Gear 3, all three versions of Gear 4, until finally, yeah, by Gear 4, Jessie accidentally kills Luffy, and then she's like, "Oh, no, 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 no. Are you dead? I didn't mean to kill you. Does this mean the game is over?" But then Luffy starts laughing and stands back up, transforming into Gear 5. And then Luffy would probably say something like, "You're strong. I can see that. But can you match Gear 5? And then Jessie would also break into laughter and say, "Are you kidding me? I wasn't even trying." And so, throughout this entire fight, oh my goodness. And so, what happens here is that they basically, in this final fight, instead of going back and forth, they decide, okay, let's just turn this into a real fight. And so it's like Luffy would do his crazy reality bendings, turning the ground into rubber, bouncing around, throwing lightning bolts, creating objects from his white cloud hair and whatever. With Jessie the Jester basically speed dodging everything like freaking Ultra Instinct and countering each attack. And then, yeah, like I said, this is a very hard battle to describe because it's supposed to be filled with chaos and insanity. But the thing is that by the end of this fight, they're both like, you know what, let's just finish this off with one final attack. And then she's like, "Oh, yay, finally. Conclusion." And so they both activate their strongest attacks and clash with both of them. And the funny thing about this final attack is that Jessie the Jester replicates Luffy's strongest attack, covering her hand in armament hockey, enlarging it, and infusing the armament hockey fist in Conqueror's hockey, and then strikes, and then strikes with Luffy's, causing a huge surge wave of Conqueror's hockey, basically wiping out all of Tomb World, just leaving a blank canvas with just Jessie just standing there looking around like, what happened here? End of fight. So this was actually a really hard one for me to go with. It was just a fun idea I thought of, because I'm like, oh, okay, let's see what happens if two Toon Force characters fight each other. And I'm like, well, now that I think about it, this fight was super one-sided. I mean, what else can I really say about this fight other than that when you think about it, when you actually imagine how the fight turns out, it is filled with chaos and insanity. They seemed evenly matched, using the same attacks against each other. But Jessie the Jester throughout the entire fight wasn't even trying. In fact, I forgot one little thing. Actually, did I mention this? That Jessie the Jester is basically immortal? Yeah, I think I did. Well, Luffy, while in Gear 5, can still be killed. and die permanently. So anyway, I think that is my kind of yeah, this is basically my conclusion to this video. So final outcome. Gear 5 Luffy versus Jessie the Jester. Winner, Jessie the Jester. And let me just say, this was not even a fight. This was humiliation. This was a massacre. Like, I don't even know what to say here. I just think that at this point, I think that I've probably created one of the most broken, overpowered story multiverses ever written. Because the fact that so far that I have like how many victories on my side, and the only success that the other fictional characters have is a draw between Luke Cosmos and Sailor Moon. But yeah, Luffy versus Jessie the Jester. A toon battle. I'm sorry, at this point I'm just repeating myself. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. And yes, please comment down below if you think that Luffy should have lasted longer in this fight, or if your opinion, Luffy probably could have won. And also, yes, let me know, like I asked before, if you think Jessie the Jester's childish mindset would have actually been her downfall instead of her success. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you with the next fight. Thanks. Bye.